Speaking of volcanoes, let me see. Let me get back on screen. Shit. Let's see. This is the video right here. I'm like, that's crazy about LSU, like the little Indian mounds or whatever. You know, it's like 2 miles not too far from the stadium. And it's like the contradiction. It's funny because it's like, you know, in the South where it's heavy on like Catholic religion and stuff like that. You know, here it is where they admit that these mounds outdate the pyramids and in essence outdate the actual, you know, religion that they claim to be, you know, like so old and ancient. You know, it's like these mounds, let's see, 6,000 years. Yeah. Approximately 6,000 years ago, older than the Egyptian pyramids. And I'm like, damn, you know, here it is where they honoring the truth of this right in plain sight, in essence. You know what I'm saying? And LSU not too far from like Baton Rouge in general, because they make you know, they make these state capitals off of the ley lines and stuff like that. You know, so the Baton Rouge energy is pretty strong. And I was about to say it's like not too far from the neighborhood that Kevin Gates and Boosie from. It's like right by LSU. Let me see, I don't know if I got an actual picture of it. All right, yeah, there you go. As a matter of fact, they just started fencing them off too. I'm like, and I laugh because I'm like, I felt like you try not to make everything about yourself, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, damn, like I be going and meditating there, and like, you know, it's like all of a sudden they closing it off or whatever. Not just be thinking of the little subtleties of like as things activate. It's like, all right, we don't want nobody meditating on these mounds. Like let's not create a you know, a space for the extra tap in, you know what I'm saying? And let's see, you had just told me to Damasil Danical. How you spell that? Oh wait, I can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, about to hear you.
Yeah, Danakil.
Danikal.
No, Dana.
Oh, all right.
And then Ki. Yeah, so it's the first one. That's funny you said that. The spot that I'd be meditating at, there's this lady. I remember I saw her go there and she started like standing there and like open up her arm. I don't know, she was doing some weird stuff. I'm like, people be taking over these spots quick.
Bro, like that be a thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, our little presence might, you know, what we do in a certain area might, you know, like it's funny because it's like, all right, you know, they kind of sense it indirectly, you know. Sometimes it might be on some little funny shit, you know what I'm saying? But in some cases, it's just like, oh, you know, it just seems like the energy's stronger here. Let me sit down right here today.
It's some of the deepest shit. Like I'm gonna get into it in a bit, but yeah, you see this place though. Like it's the deepest place on the planet, and it's also the hottest place on the planet. The only thing that comes close is Death Valley. That's the only thing that comes close, but it's the hottest place.
All right, when they say the deepest, so it's like it's deeper than like New Orleans.
The deepest spot
to be like
it's the deepest spot on the earth. The deepest spot on the earth possible. Yeah. So the activity that happens there mirrors the activity that happens in the Pacific Rim at the bottom of the ocean that they can't see. And when the Pacific Rim, the volcanoes go off, that's what moves the tectonic plates and causes the continents to shift.
All right.
So with this place, some people say it looks like hell on earth, but basically you can see how like it's crazy because the Afar people will just be like, that's not the only place they live, but they'll just live there, and it's not really. They'll like be on camels and stuff like that, and they'll travel through the area. And what they'll do is, like, they'll be without food or anything for months, right? They'll just be like drinking like camel milk. But what they'll do is they'll dig into the earth and they'll find fresh pockets of water to feed, you know, to give water to their camel and to give themselves water.
All right, so, that's kind of like to some extent they mimicking that energy on the movie Doom. On the movie Doom, you had the people. I think the planet was called Arrakis, where it was mining the spice.
Yeah, they're talking about us. I don't really fuck with Dune because the author, like, he's part of this family called the Herbert family. They wrote all this stuff about anarchism and shit. And some of them live here in the city I'm at. And it's literally a royal family, and they literally study chaos theory. And chaos is the same word as Kush. Like they study Kush. Like that's what they're kind of that's what they're talking about on Dune and Luke, like Anakin Skywalker's planet. Yeah, Tatooine.
Yeah, because the people had the little suits though. Not necessarily that they was getting it from out of the earth, but they had like these body suits that would recycle their sweat so they could, you know, drink it as water.
So that's what I'm about to talk about. Yeah. So I'm telling you, they're stealing our shit, man. I don't fucking like these guys. But I'm not even talking about like European people. I'm talking about that family specifically. They kind of annoy me. But anyways, so the way it works is like this, right? So there's a huge difference between a mound and a pyramid. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. They're two different things. Like they might have the same, somewhat of a similar shape, right? Entirely two different things, completely two different purposes. So the way this works is
I feel where you're going. Continue.
Yeah. So the way it works is basically the mountains first came out of the water, right? So the tallest mountains in the world. So the tallest mountains in the world, first of all, is Himalayan mountains in India, right? But those mountains only were created because India is called a subcontinent that was connected to Ethiopia. Literally, this is a historical fact. It was a part of Africa. It was connected to Ethiopia. And then when it broke off from the continent, when it hit Asia, the collision is what supposedly created the Himalayan mountains. So that's kind of a little bit different. But I'm not saying the mountain, like, see, when we're talking about Mount Zion and like these type of mountains and stuff, it goes into like a deep story. So basically the mountains came out of the water, right? This is how it began. The mountain is the tree of life. It's also, it's a lot of things at once. It's the cross, it's the Ankh, it's a bunch of things at once. And when it came out of the water, this became the highlands of the world, right? And the lower lands were like more of like the marsh, like the the lowlands kind of still had water on them. So you know how like people will say the pyramids originally, like there was water like hitting the pyramids and stuff. That's because like it was more in a watery area. Like the places that actually had um that you was more the area, but the water park and you're kind of like knee deep, and you know what I'm saying? Like it still had water kind of like along the surface of the ground. So every year when the Nile River floods, it kind of, so Sirius, what happens on July 23rd, also around Haile Selassie's birthday, but July 23rd is when Sirius comes near Earth, you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of the beginning of this period. Then the 13th month of the year, September 5th to September 11th, right? That is when the Nile River floods, and there's a celebration that happens every year along the Nile River in Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan. It happens everywhere. So we have slightly different celebrations, but with us, what happens is we take all of the, because we have thousands and thousands of replicas of the Ark of the Covenant, and every single church in Ethiopia has a replica of the Ark of the Covenant. We keep the shit moving so nobody knows where this shit is. But what happens is everybody will walk with the Ark, and like there's a celebration that happens where people will walk down the river and stuff with the Ark when Sirius is coming. Because what happens is the Nile River floods and it brings all of the different soils and stuff like that down to Egypt. And that's what creates the black land. That's why it's black soils, because it's a mixture of all the different soil from the different tributary rivers around of Africa. So that's why Egypt was also a mixed place, like like not mixed race. I mean, like different African groups and stuff, because it was like a collection of the way that we put all the different soils through the river there. It was also a collection of different, the soil represents each group of people too, you know what I'm saying, that made up the civilization. So that's what made agriculture possible there. So when the pyramids was also a reflection of the place, the land of the gods where they came from, which is the mountain land, which is called the highlands, right? Tobia. So the word is in Ethiopia where it means Athenian oaks and all that shit. Tobia means the good land, the risen land, the God's good land. It basically it's tied to things like the fields of Eru and like all this type of stuff, like Egyptian heaven after you cross through the moat, the fourth dimension and shit like that. And basically what happens is
that's also akin of like to the, like, you know, riding the rainbow bridge in essence, like you know, in Norse mythology in essence. And I thought about also what came to mind was Quetzalcoatl, you know, Quetzalcoatl, the rainbow feathered bird or whatever. But
yeah, that's my profile picture, you know what I'm saying? Like the Bridge of Ra, like the
all right.
That's the name Bridge of, yeah. So yeah, it's a deep thing. So yeah, and this goes into the whole stargates and all the shit we were talking about with the mode and everything. It's deep as fuck. So basically the pyramids are a reflection of the mountains, also, which is also the tree of life. But the mountains, they started underwater before it rose up, and those were volcanoes. And those volcanoes are portals between worlds. So you know how like the pyramids is perfectly lined up with Orion and you know all that type of stuff, right? Every pyramid is lined up with the star system. The mountains, see, the obelisks, so today we have cell phone towers. Originally they were obelisks, right? And then before the obelisks, they were trees. That's what they were. And then it was a rainforest area too, right? So like, but before pyramids, there were mountains, and before mountains, there were volcanoes. And this is why in Black Panther, he worked, like, that's why they had such advanced technology, because they were working with Hephaestus, the god of, like, technology and volcanoes and all that shit, too.
All right.
So the volcanoes, what happens is, this is where, you know, in shamanism, how minerals and all that stuff is the closest thing to God, right? Like minerals and rocks, and those are essentially the closest things to God. Those get produced from the volcanoes themselves. So to go into outer space, you have to go into the ocean, and to go into the ocean, basically there's like portals you can get through. Like there's different portals, like in Thor, they show Loki, he knew how to get through certain portals outside of the Rainbow Bridge, right? And then one of those, usually those portals are in mountains, or they're like, one of the main portals for hell is at the bottom, near the bottom of the ocean. It's at the Pacific Rim area. That's what the movie Pacific Rim shows all the monsters coming out of. um, out of there, and that's what's called the abyss. That's the abyss. That's what we call hell, the infernal realm. Inferno, right? Inferno, like book. So that's hell, right? So what happened is we originally, when we talk about civilizing the world, we gave everybody agriculture. So when we gave everybody agriculture, this was basically Sumeria, for example. It's also the lowland area. What happens is the mountain. So salt water, you can't drink from salt water, right? That's one level tying into the tree of death, but it's also tying into the moat being death, or the tree of death, the tree of good, the tree of knowledge, right? The tree of life. So when the mountain came out of the water, originally, the same way that Far dig in the earth to get the hot spring, or like the water source, right? The fresh water. Abzu, in Sumerian mythology, Abzu, or the Leviathan, aka the sandworm in Dune, right?
Right.
Yeah, that is that's the Levitical order as well. So that's the Abzu, that's called the fresh water, and that's what came out of the mountain. So the top of the mountain, the water started flowing out of the mountain, and this momentum, this ties into free energy, and free energy is actually what the seraphim is as well. Basically, these rivers, right, were the natural irrigation systems of the planet, and this is tying into the different lands of the planet, and all that type of stuff.
Listen.
So a mound, this is where it gets deep, and a lot of people don't really know what a mound is. Even the mounds that you see that are made of stone, they're not made of stone in that sense. They're stone plated. They're still made of dirt. They're plated with stone though. No one tells you that shit though.
You say the mounds?
None of, like, the mounds that are made, see, there's mounds that are just made of like dirt, right? But you know the ones that have stone on the outside of it, like when they call them pyramids, like the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico and all those pyramids, those are just stone plated. They're not completely made out of stone. They're just they're made of dirt, and then they have a layer of stone.
Right.
Yeah, that's not at all. The only real masonry that exists in the Americas for the most part is the Olmec heads, which are completely made out of stone, and somewhat like Machu Picchu, and like cities like Machu Picchu. But Machu Picchu is like a very different, a lot of people don't really, it's a whole different, and it's crazy because Clyde Winters just put out a video the other day talking about the Axumites and Machu Picchu. It's kind of wild.
Who you say put out a video?
Clyde Winters. He's a doctor. He's an African American.
All right, because I heard Winters and I thought about Dan Winters.
No, not Dan Winters. But yeah, so masonry, that's originally, masonry is like, so when you think about the Twa people so this ties into the Twa people, right? So, and I know you know a lot about the Twa and the fairies and all that type of stuff. Like, so fairy mounds are called the Siddhas, or the Sith, or the Sets, or they also call them the Danu, or the people of Israel. Like, they literally, this is, if you want, you can look it up if you want real quick. Type in AOC, so AOS. There's a couple of things you can look up real quick. And then space SI. And then, yeah, first link. So this is when they talk about St. Patrick chasing the snakes out of Ireland and shit, they're basically talking about the 12. So you see how it says spelled Sith, right?
And Tuatha is almost like Tua right here.
Yeah, that's exactly. You see above it how it says Sith?
Yeah.
And then you see on the top left it says Ao Siddha, like city, right?
Yeah.
So this ties into this ties into Seth. All the stuff I've been talking about, even when I was talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Seto Kaiba. Yeah, the city, right? So so yeah, you can click the Tuath De Danann, right, as well if you want. So that's basically let's see. This is basically the Olympians. They're talking about like the Olympians, but this is where the whole fairy thing came from. So yeah, the Danu, it's talking about the people of Dan, which are talking about the people of Israel. Like, it literally says that. They call them the people of Israel. And it also says the good people. And that's what I mean. Tob in Hebrew means good. So when you say Tobia, like, that's the word for Ethiopia. We don't say Ethiopia, we say Tobia.
Right.
They don't have the letters for it. that just means the good land or the good people or God's good people. And that's why the Danu people are called the good people, right? And they're the mound builders. They're the ones who built the mounds of Ireland. And so now if you type in, Ptah, the Egyptian god Ptah, right?
Yeah, he the one they modeled the Oscar off of. I think I remember a storyline about that. Like the Oscar award was like
Right.
said to be connected to Ptah.
Yeah, and the Nobel Prize, yeah, all that. Yeah, so the word Twa for the Twa people came from the word Ptah, like it's the same thing. And if you Google it, Ptah was actually depicted as a Twa man. They don't really show it often, but there's statues of him being like tiny, like literally making sure that you know he's a Twa, like he's of short stature. So the word Tobia is also Topia, like TP. It's literally the word TP, and then Ja, Topi, Ja, or Topia, Tobijah, Tobiah, Tobias, Tuba. So the word Tobia, TP, is literally the word Ptah backwards. And Haile Selassie is like 5 foot tall or something like that. And usually like a lot of Ethiopians, I'm not, but like a lot of Ethiopians are really short too. Like this is like some are tall too, but like for the most part, with Haile Selassie being the king, it's talking about the Ptah, like, if you want to look it up too, from the show Hunter x Hunter, you have the Ant King.
All right, I never started watching Hunter x Hunter yet.
Just check it out super quick. The Ant King. He's depicted exactly like Ptah, and then ants, they build the mounds, right?
Wait,
yeah, his name's no, that's right. Just click images. His name is Miriam. That's the name as well, tying to Tamare or Meru, pyramid, right? So you see the hat and everything, and then the stretched earlobes. That's all Ptah Nilotic stuff, right?
Being green too, and
Yep.
and connecting with the underworld energy through the scorpion energy. Look like
exactly, and he fights a guy named Netero.
Damn, man, and it makes me also think about so this is also somewhat what Cell was about. Damn, I probably have to watch Dragon Ball Z again.
That's exactly what. So this is exactly what it is. So the Saiyans. So the way you say the word Zion is Sion. It's the letter TS. It's a letter they don't have in English. Sion. And in the Nana, like in the Sumerian mythology, Nana. Mm-hmm. Nana was also called Sin. In the Ethiopian, when in the land of Sheba before like 4,000-ish years ago, before the Solomonic dynasty, mm-hmm. when we were if you want to call it pagan, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the god's name was Sayan or Sion. It's spelled literally Sayn. That's where the monk, and he was the god of the moon. And this is why the Goku, the Saiyans, when they look at the moon, they turn into the Osaru, aka the Osiris or Osar, right? Who's connected with Ptah. And Osiris is the god of agriculture. He's the one who came from the highlands and gave agriculture to the lowlands of Egypt. So, which is called Hetka Ptah, or the land of Ptah, aka Tobia, aka Thebes, the land of luxury or the good land. Like this is where they get all these words from. So what a mound is, a lot of people, and I love fucking with people about this, because a lot of people will start going off about about the mounds and try to make them like more important than the pyramids, and I don't know.
I mean, what I picked up on too is like the mounds more so was like a representation of a feminine energy, or being like like a mound, like an impregnated wound in essence, and the pyramid is more so like one is feminine in the fire in the middle. Of course, pyramid, the fire is connected with the masculine energy. So because hence why also wherever there's pyramids, well, not say everywhere there's pyramids, but just in Egypt or whatever, but the whole vibe of like overly masculinized energy turn into a desert in essence. Like you lack water when it's the balance of the masculine energy is.
See, and this is a deep thing about it. So his name is Meruem, right? The Ant King. Now, the story of Ptah is this, right? So the pyramid, this is the story, the creation story, right? There was the waters of noon, right? And out of the waters of noon came either the lotus flower or the step pyramid. And out of the step pyramid, like Ptah was inside of the step pyramid, the ant king, the ant who built the mound, right? And out of that came Atum and then Ra, right? And then Ra created the Inuad, like Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, and all of them, right? So he created the Enuad, or the tree of life. So he came out of the pyramid. But originally the pyramid in the Kemetic languages, it's not called a pyramid, it's called a mer. And mer is a feminine, it's feminine, you know what I'm saying? So this is where it goes, right? Now, like I keep saying, I love to fuck with people on this. Because I just love to let people like talk about it and like go off onto a whole thing about it. But a lot of people don't realize that most of the stuff in Africa is undiscovered, like completely undiscovered.
I feel most of the things in this realm is, you know, is untouched, you know, as far as I would feel. Yeah, I feel you on that, bro.
America is ancient, don't get me wrong, but it's not even, when you go back thousands of years, like the continent wasn't even like it's a whole different, it's a deep thing. That's why I was talking about Machu Picchu. That part of the continent in South America wasn't even connected to the rest of South America at that time. Like it's deep as fuck. I'm
about to say, like, I know for sure, like, you know, I guess too, because my interests don't peak in that area. Like, I don't be like looking for like, all right, like whether the earth is round or flat, or, you know, like areas. Like, I'm more so be looking into the literature behind of it, or the symbols behind.
Right.
So that's the only reason why I'm not like too familiar, you know, with that energy. But
well,
you know,
I had to go to it for other reasons. I've come across certain people who are like real I don't know, hateful, and they I don't know, that's the whole, I just have to do that for other reasons, but it came back full circle to me understanding like the greater picture to it also. What happens is a mound, I'll just get to the point basically. A mound is made out of dirt, right? But it's really made out of compost.
all right.
It's agriculture. So what you do is you go to like the top of the hill near a river source, right? Near where either you have a well, like it's a way of agriculture. And what you do is this is why they would put bodies into it sometimes too. It's mixing the spirit of a certain person with the land and all that type of stuff, and basically evolving to like the status of Neteru and stuff like that. It's a whole deep thing, but anyways, it's like an agricultural society would take all of their waste, their compost, and they would go build a mound, and that mound would become the new fertilizer for the next civilization.
Right, all right. Kind of like a little area that would like fertilize like the trees and stuff, like whether they could either go get the compost from, or just in general from it being in that area, it would kind of like help everything around it.
They would strategically place it so that it would leach nutrients into the water that would already just the river, they would redirect the river to be a natural like plumbing system for their crops already.
Gotcha.
So they didn't even really have to go get it. Like once a civilization was like complete, they would like stone plate the mound basically. Like it was to represent basically a perfect civilization in a sense, like the completion of a civilization. And yeah, but the pyramid is completely different. It's completely made out of stone. Like, you know, the whole piezoelectric properties of granite and all that type of stuff, right? Right. Piezoelectricity, the more compressed it is, the more piezoelectric it becomes, right? So imagine having millions of blocks stacked on top of each other that all weigh tons. How much piezoelectric energy would be created out of that? So the Great Pyramid and the stone architecture, those were energy like they operate as a lot of more things, but they are energy generators, stargates, and like and don't get me wrong, the mounds and other things like that also operate as like stargates and certain things as well to a point too. But the mounds, for the most part, they contain kind of like what you're saying on a feminine and masculine, but they contain the energy in. While the pyramid is kind of more like it does contain it in a level, but it's like again, it's like a portal for it's more like a portal in a sense.
Right, because that's what I feel like. It's without no studying, it's just kind of like, you know, kind of on some clear cognitive vibes. But I also did hear a little bit of that. I remember in what it was, spirit science, bringing up like the whole little Atlanteans or Atlantis like experiment with something. But just in generally, you know, especially when I watched like more than one show that showed that when a certain being had awakening, like a lot of stuff was turned into sand. There was also another show not called Fairy Tales, but it was something with fairies. I forgot the name of it. But you know, towards the end it had this big fairy, and everywhere it walked, everything would turn to sand. But you know, I also thought about like with the pyramids, like something like an experiment going wrong in this sense, you know, or not say going wrong. It depends on what side of the picture,
what it is.
you know, like who, you know, from whose perspective, because I feel like, you know, some scientists, you know, might feel like, oh, this experiment went as, you know, what we wanted, while other scientists might feel like, no, we didn't, you know, want that, you know.
That's basically what it is, though. Like that's pretty much that's where like certain deserts and stuff like that. That's where a lot of that type of stuff. And yeah, so but before the pyramids in Egypt, and this is what people don't really tell you, they'll say that it's older than the oldest pyramids in Egypt, but before the pyramids in Egypt, they had mastabas. Mastabas are mounds made out of dirt. They don't tell you about the whole period of time where they were building mounds before pyramids, which are called the mastabas, right? And the thing is, you see the most stone architecture in the world in East Africa, and to an extent, like real masonry only is really from like it's really an East African. It really shows, like especially in Ethiopian stuff, because there's like a lot of people don't realize too. We have like sphinxes and a bunch of crazy shit in Ethiopia, but it's just under every single temple that we have, and we have thousands and thousands of temples. They're built on top of older temples. That's how it works. We build them on top of it, but we carve it out of the ground. But it's built on top. So like, so the mounds were to create, like a lot of them. Not only did they acted as like a compost, but they also contained an energy within it. And this would be also like, so if you had Quetzalcoatl being the guardian of the Pyramid of the Sun, it was also containing the energy of Quetzalcoatl under the ground as well. And then that goes deeper to the what we call the abyss, or the infernal realms, or the tree of death, like the Sephiras of the tree of death, where, you know, the beings there are older and stuff, but that's where they're pulling energy from those things and kind of like purifying it through the tree of life, and it's kind of giving like the life we have here, you know what I'm saying?
Wait, because I kind of missed the second half of you say what's considered like the tree of life, and what is purifying, or run it back because I kind of missed something.
So how should I put this? So it's kind of like in Pacific Rim, if you had the volcano, and then that was like an interdimensional portal to a realm where all these like kaiju or monsters, like, you know what I'm saying, live, and they came up out of that portal. So in that portal, that other world, that's like where that's basically, so the volcanoes is Da'ath or Vulcan or Maldek, right? That planet. But when you go into Da'ath, that's where you get into the tree of death. So that would be the world of the kaijus or the monsters or demons, and you know what I'm saying, like, which I'm not saying in like a negative sense, but that's where it is, right? But then when it comes out of the volcano, like kind of like turning lead to gold. This is why the Twa were known for doing that. This is why also in Lord of the Rings, the dwarves were always hoarding gold and all that type of stuff, right? Because they're the ones who created the gold. But that's also why it's called the Hobbit. It's the word Tobia backwards again. So it's like, it's talking about the same thing over and over. So, yeah, so the volcano, the way that it creates the minerals, right? And then the minerals would kind of be like the one-dimensional realm, like one of the lowest realms and stuff. The volcano is kind of like that fire is kind of like like a purifying process for anything that's coming out of that tree of death realm to the earth realm. And then when it comes out of the volcano, or out of the fresh water source of the mountain, right, from the highlands, the land of the red land, the land of Seth, or the land of Set, and then it comes down the river to the lowlands, like the Kemet, the black land. And this doesn't just have to be Egypt. This is any civilization around the world that has every civilization around the world worked like with the river system. When it comes
That's why
up,
Hawaii energy probably dope. I have to travel to Hawaii and see what Hawaii talking about.
man, I want to go there. Yeah, Oceania is yeah, it's some deep shit. Um, so that's what that purification does. Like that's whether it's the mountain, whether it's the volcano, whether it's the tree of life, the cross, which is why like the whole sacrifice and like being the purifier of, you know, like dying for the sins of the people, like purifying, you know what I'm saying? All of that is talking about, it's also talking about the two bloodlines, the two brothers, the one brother being from the tree of death side, the one brother coming from the tree of life side. And then it's talking about that. It's talking about that whole process led to gold.
How about to say it's also like the mirror perspective too. I think of I was looking at the Hindu text and looking at the story of Yamu. I think it was called.
Yama,
it was like the underworld god, but it also had like the story of Narcissus in there too, where like he had went to look at his reflection, and his reflection was like more so like a demon, and he ran back to Shiva asking like, you know, what happened or whatever. He used to look good or whatever, but I guess like somewhat of that little storyline too, you know, because I also like I researched a while back. And also like this whole connection with Orion, Osiris, and the Europe of Babaluaye, Baron Samedi in some cases, because you know, it's all interconnected, like the dogs that walk with Babaluaye or whatever, and in connection with the Lazarus energy too, of like raising somebody from the dead, was like the whole two white dogs or whatever, or like Series A and Series B, you know, at the feet of Orion or whatever. You know, because that's what made me want to look up like more mythologies in connection with like the constellations and stuff too. You know.
Well, and they say the Yoruba like that whole spiritual system. They say that, and if you really get deep into it, they say that comes from like the whole like India, that side of things too.
Yeah, for me, I know me in general, like that's just what I gravitate towards. It's kind of like, you know, you could say like as a whole, like the Kush energy, you know what I'm saying? But like definitely like that Ethiopian / you know, Indian culture, but definitely like, for lack of a better word, we call Indian culture, as far as like the Hindu aspect and the Sanskrit, you know, like like I don't know. I mean, I know on a deeper level, you know, on a soul level, it has its little reasons, but just for sure, like with the vibes of like the meditation and just the style of life and just the aesthetics of how they would, you know, just carry themselves spiritually, you know, it kind of resonated with me.
Yeah, Yama being the god of death, he represents like Uncle Sam. He's like the guy who runs the Ferris wheel or the wheel of karma, you know, and
like a
even
Saturn energy.
Exactly.
And also, I forgot the name of that movie with the brethren who plays Logan on X-Men, but it's kind of connected with the Tree of Life. I forgot. I think the Fountain, if I'm not mistaken, but like it was connected to
probably.
It's connected to the star system Shaboba, you know, and Shaboba from the Aztec perspective was like the underworld planet or whatever, you know. But man, let me see. I'm right here.
Yeah, in Bleach also, he Soul Society is run by basically 13 captains, and the leader of the 13 captains, his name is Yamamoto.
Wait, will you say what anime?
Bleach.
Bleach.
The Soul Society is ran by Yamamoto. Even when I was talking about Yu-Gi-Oh, the main character Yugi from the first show, he his dark side, like the Egyptian pharaoh Atum, right? He's also called Yami Yugi. So Yami just means dark Yugi, and Yugi also ties to the word yogi, right? So the dark yogi, but he was the pharaoh of Egypt. And Atum, you know how I told you that the step pyramid came out of the water, but in some stories it was the lotus flower that came out of the water, and Ptah came out of it, and then Atum came out of it. the lotus flower is also a narcissus flower. It's the same flower. It's the same flower. So I call it the serpent who for the first serpent who stood up. Like that's what I got at in a deep meditation way back. It was basically like all the plants. So all the older plants originally, like the dominating plants of today, I think they're called like angiosperms or some shit like that. Like the grass, the trees, all the plants that rise upwards. That's all newer. You know what I'm saying? Originally, a lot of them were like the original plants were like more like mosses and stuff that went sideways. You know.
All right.
And it gets actually, this is where you get into Kabbalah and the cube of space and everything like that. So this gets actually really fucking deep. So you know how you have three directions? You have the x-axis, you have the y-axis. So x-axis, you have the y-axis.
The three mother letters in Hebrew.
Right. Aleph, Mem, Shem. Yeah.
Well, I kind of got it right there. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, and then,
yeah. So.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. The cube of space. So the three dimensions, right? So so the air element is up and down, right? That's the z-axis, up and down.
Right. So that's the left. Yep. Like as far
right.
as the
up and down. Fire or shin is forward and backwards, right? Water or mem is left and right. So this is where it gets really fucking deep. A lot of people that a lot of people miss this one with the cube of space. This gets really fucking deep. You can't Google this shit. I'm telling you.
Right.
Yeah. So this is how it works. And literally, the word Toba also means he who follows the sun like a shadow, which is basically every plant. So in the Nile River, the lily or the lotus, the blue lotus, is the national plant of Egypt. It's a sacred plant. And same with India, the lotus. Every day when the sun rises, the lotus flower comes out of the water and opens up to the sun. And when the sun sets, it closes up and goes back down in the water. It's to follow the sun like a shadow. So the way this works is, if you think about animals, right? So male energy deals with the y-axis. This is why we have a Y chromosome. The female energy deals with the x-axis. This is why they're XX, right? All right. Now, females, if you really think about it, so think about anything inside of the water, right? If you take a fish, like everything in water looks like it's moving straight. But if you really take it out of water, take a fish out of water and put it on Earth, and it's going to start flapping on its side, right?
Right.
Everything in the x-axis has to move left and right. That's the water dimension. Everything in the water dimension moves left and right to move forward. That's the realm of Maya or illusion.
Well, what that says about dolphins.
That's what I'm saying. And what does that tell you about?
Because say for instance, they kind of move like this. You know what I'm saying? Like in this. Like,
they're using momentum though.
But I'm
because
just saying,
they still have a fin.
But they fin. If you really look at it, they fin is designed to like move them through, like again, like more on a like. No,
you're on it. You're on it. I'm gonna get back to that in the Z axis. So I'll get back to that in a second. They're ascended. Like you're moving too quick. no, you're not. But you're on the shit, bro. So what does that tell? Think about what that tells you about women too. Like women usually they're not really like direct. Like you have to kind of figure out how like they're moving forward, but they're moving with their emotions. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to read into. Like they're basically doing that. Like, and it's funny too. If you've ever seen a lot of like Pisces women too, sometimes they'd even wobble and shit. Like their balance is kind of off sometimes. But they're literally moving in the water direction. They're moving left and right to move forward. So that's the water beings. That's how everything in the water moves. Everything in the fire realm moves forward and backwards. So think about like a bull running at you. It sees red fire and it just runs straight. But all you have to do is step to the side and it can't turn left or right.
Right.
So that's the same thing as like rhinos, like pretty much all four-legged animals. See, but when you get into cats and dogs and stuff, it gets a little bit different. But this is why these are more important animals. So I'll get into that in a sec. But most animals like a crocodile, right? Yeah, they got agility. They can move in multiple dimensions. That's what it's talking about. So like a crocodile, if it bites you, it has to barrel roll sideways to even like fuck you up. So like that,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So a snake, right? You see it moves left and right to move forward on Earth. It's part of the water dimension. Now, the sacred animals of all the sacred animals are the ones that can move in the Z axis. So rabbits, frogs, like everything that has the jumping ability or the ability to rise up. Frogs, rabbits.
I'm just thinking about frogs when you said that too, because I'm like, something be coming up with frogs, like in different cartoons and stuff like that. You know, it's like it's something about like a frog. I remember it's this cartoon movie. I forgot the name of the director, but long story short, it's like Japanese movies or whatever. And it's this movie called Spirited Away, where this little girl has to go
Right.
through all right, yep, and it's frogs helping out in the in between realm or whatever.
Yeah, and Naruto, right? In Naruto, Naruto was taught by, there was two sages, the frog sage and the snake sage.
And as you say that, you know, what also came to me was like this is random, but it was just some clear cognizant vibes. I'm like, all right, I see it. You know, it's like with ducks, like, so say for instance other birds, they're more so
I've been
like,
watching ducks for the last couple of days here.
so they're more of like the serpent or like reptile, you know, mixed with bird, or you know, or should I say, you know, comes from just the direct reptile.
That's
energy.
the Tahuti, the goose and the heron with the long neck too, right? They're on that same level.
So I would say a goose is like a mixture of, so all right, let me get to this. Like I picked up that the duck, instead of being like just straight connected to the serpent or reptile, it's more so amphibian. Cause I'm like looking at the way, you know, it has a bill, unlike other birds. Its little nose is like round like a frog in essence, you know what I'm saying? And it's in and out, like, you know, it's one of the few birds that, you know, again, like go in the water and fly, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so it has that ability, you know, just like an amphibious, you know, like a frog, you know, it's like sometimes in the water, sometimes on land, you know what I'm saying? And again, like with that little rounded nose, so I was like, all right, maybe like the duck was like
they're multi-dimensional.
Right, because that's how I look at animals. It's like they telling a metaphysical story, you know, more than anything. You know, kind of like when we did that Zoom with it was me, you, Amber, and a few other people, and bringing up the squirrel energy and how the squirrel energy is like the cusp in between the Leo and the Virgo energy. You know,
yeah, squirrels are like ascended rats, you know, like squirrels and chipmunks are like ascended mice and rats and hamsters and shit. And,
right.
Yeah. And then dolphins, the ability for dolphins to jump, that's them being in the Z axis as well. So they're ascended as well. And turtles are some deep shit because they just don't even fucking move. You know what I mean?
Damn, because what's funny is I not too long ago got me a little turtle pendant that I wear every day, but you know, connecting with the turtles, and I'm like, damn, that's something there why I like the Ninja Turtle so much, you know what I'm saying? And just that whole you know, connection. And I've been tapping in with it too, just off of the strength of implementing the energy of patience. So it's like kind of invoking the spirit of the turtle energy in that sense.
So this gets into some deep shit. So like the master splinter, the rat, and the turtles, right? And then you have the tortoise and the hare, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like the ant and the grasshopper. So these are telling you about kind of the similar things.
Damn, what my hold on, let me grab this other. I'm listening.
What was I gonna say about that? Fuck, I kind of forgot. But
the ninja, yeah, you're talking about Ninja Turtles and the rat and the hamster. You was like something about the turtle.
So you know how like rats, like we were talking about the Minotaur too. You know how rats like they can get through the maze and all that shit, right? Like they know they're good at getting through mazes. Mm-hmm. That's talking about being on a certain dimensional level. Oh yeah, you know how elephants though are scared of mice.
All right, yeah.
That's because of the whole dimensional thing, because they're on a different dimension. So like the animals are seeing each other from a dimensional perspective. It's not like.
Right, I get what you're saying. Like,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get it. You know, it's like.
So the mouse is able to project its energy to a higher dimension that's making the elephant feel smaller, like it's freaking it out.
All right. And the elephant, I guess, is like what's funny is paradoxically wise enough to peep out that or something like that in that sense.
Yeah, because elephants are some of the smartest animals too, right? So
So yeah, it's like
it's a deep thing. So yeah, every animal that is like sacred in any culture. So the Narcissus thing, like basically he fell in love with his own reflection. This is like also the Adonis, Adonai, Asir. So the word Adonis, Adonai, Asir, Ashura, they all come from the same word. So the Asir is like Odin and Zeus and like that whole pantheon, right? But then you also had the Vanir, which is where the word vanity comes from, right? So this is where like the evil side, right? And then the Ashuras is also the same as the Asir. So Indra, Thor, you know what I'm saying?
Wait, you
But then
said you said Indra?
Indra. Yeah.
That's something connected to the Yama story. Something with Vishnu and Indra. Or what pantheon or where you get the Indra name from?
The Ashuras in India.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because matter of fact, just a little let's see.
I think maybe the Ashuras. I don't know. He might be, but there's the Ashuras and the Devas in India, like the two. But then you also have the Nagas and the Garudas, right? So this is the eagle and the snake. So the first snake, the way I was looking at it, the meditation I had was you had like the anaconda, for example, in South America, you know, like the movie Anaconda, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like how anacondas were revered by like tribes in South America and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you had the king cobra who was able to stand up and look down.
Right. Kind of had a different perspective in essence, or a different angle, like an angel.
It's the z-axis. So any of the apex predators, like an eagle, see, and this is the fucked up thing. King cobras, they eat their own kind, like they eat other snakes, you know? So they deal with like, they basically like maintain the order of like their own species. Eagles, they eat smaller birds too. They maintain like so they're almost like cannibals. And this is as crazy as this gets into the whole Satanism and like the higher societies and all the weird shit that they do, you know what I'm saying? But they're trying to mimic, I'm not saying it's right at all, but that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to mimic.
Right.
They're just trying to mimic that shit. So it's like it gets into a whole deep thing. But yeah, that's the whole thing. Like all the three acts. So I think turtles are probably on a fourth dimensional level, at least, because I know, for example, in Digimon, the tree of life is called King Drazel, and Drazel, so that's the tree of life.
Yggdrasil.
Yeah. And in Beyblade, the original Beyblade, they had like the four main Beybladers, which are based off of the four guardians in Chinese astrology: the white tiger, the black tortoise, the azure dragon, and the phoenix. Right? Those are like the four archangels, basically, but in Chinese mythology. And those four animals, the black tortoise in Beyblade, his name is Drasil also. But so Drasil, and then King Drazel, but then it's also called the tree of, like in Digimon, King Drazel is the tree of life, aka like they tell you in Digimon, it comes from Yggdrasil too, right? So the tree of life, they're telling you, is basically a turtle. And if the tree of life is basically a turtle, and we're talking about Earth being Turtle Island as Pangea, right? Then that's probably telling you that the turtle itself, like talking about the turtle and the hare, and then also the rat and the elephant, you know what I'm saying? It's like that ability to be immovable is to be immortal as well.
Right. In essence, you know, because it's like, you know, so tapped in that it's not necessarily having to seek refuge in a certain area per se. Like it's just kind of represent being tapped in no matter where it's at, in essence.
Like you see the dude meditating right there too.
Are being protected no matter where it's at. Matter of fact, just that movie, The Fountain. That's what I was talking about. It brings.
You see the dude meditating; he's not moving at all. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And the pyramids are immortal; like they just don't move at all. If you see a rat running around, it looks like it's moving fast, but it's actually moving slow. If you see a plane in the air, it's moving fast as hell, but it's moving. It looks like it's moving slow. You know what I'm saying? That's relativity.
So I was about to say that's kind of like as we brought up the whole Ant King thing. You know, think about Ant-Man from Marvel. You know, and going different dimensions, you know, and how he went into the little void dimension. I think it was from going so small, going into that void energy, but also like in an explanation of like, you know, a fly to us, you know, it's like, you know, it seemed like a fly moving 100 miles per hour to us, but it's just moving at a regular speed. But because we're on a different dimension level, you know, matter of fact, to the fly, like when we swinging at a fly, we thinking like, oh shit, I move fast or whatever. You know, the fly looking at you like you're moving almost like in slow mo, like.
Bro, I've been getting on it. I've just been catching flies, like just catching them. You know, it's slow to me now. But no, that's straight up what it is, though. That is what it is. Like, so that, and like the turtle being so slow, it's basically like they're immortal. Even in Lord of the Rings, the three giant things, the ants are, I think they're called ents actually, which is kind of funny with the ant thing. They're called ents. They're literally immortal, the tree beings, right? So it's talking about being in one place, and that's how you become a Stargate.